All right, and we're back with another fresh conversation with Noah and Vivaan, who we had chatted with, I think it was a couple years now. We were trying to remember the exact date, and we had chatted a lot about like online learning and choosing different educational paths for yourself and figuring out like what's the best kind of education for me. These guys are great. They're intelligent human beings with kind hearts, and they're an inspiration to me. I used to work with them and teach them at a previous school where I worked, and it's very weird seeing them with long hair and like taller and with like almost like adult lives. And speaking of adult lives, the reason that we're back again is I thought it'd be really interesting and really kind of a cool opportunity to hear what they have to say going now from K through 12 and transitioning potentially into like higher education and talking about the application process for colleges and figuring out like, okay, like here's who I am now. Like, who do I want to be, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, those are all things that we've gone through in our lives. Like I can speak for myself. I went through a lot of emotions and processing and reflection, like figuring out that I wanted to go to music school. So let's get into it. Noah and Vivaan, why don't you introduce yourselves and just say your name again for the fourth time?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Noah. I am turned 18 like a month ago. Wow, that's pretty crazy actually. Feels like it was yesterday. But yeah, I'm 18, senior at Stanford Online High School. With regards to college, yeah, don't know yet where I'm going. So kind of just gonna wait and find out.
I'm Vivaan, and I'm still 17, and I'm a senior at Sugar Bowl Academy and then part-time at Stanford Online. And I'm committed to Boston College for next year. So yeah, pretty excited.
Yay. I'm excited to hear that for you. I know sometimes we have to wait or we have to know earlier, depending on where we applied. So we'll hear from them more about more specifics related to applying and maybe choosing where they want to go. So what made you choose the schools that you applied to? And tell us more, both of you, where you ended up applying, and you can give any kind of information or detail around, what's my first, like, how did I come up with my first choice, second choice, or maybe you have a school where you thought like this might be a good fit, but I'm not sure, but I'm going to apply anyway. Or like maybe there were schools that are like, I know this is the school for me. So take it away. Whoever wants to jump in first.
All right, sure. Yeah, so for me, it was a lot based on I'm a competitive skier, so I'm trying to ski Division 1 in college, and so all the schools I applied to were all Division 1 alpine ski schools. So that kind of narrowed my options down a lot. Before I decided that I only wanted to apply to ski schools, my list was quite large, and I didn't really know how I was gonna get it down. Um, After deciding that I definitely wanted to ski Division 1, I kind of narrowed my schools to about 10. Yeah, and that's kind of where I went. And then Dartmouth was my top choice, because of the incredible academics and also the great ski team. And BC was second, so I ED to BC.
So what is BC? Boston College. You already said that. Yeah. Tell us a little more about like, so why did you choose, other than the skiing factor, like what other factors were there that you thought about?
Yeah, well, I definitely wanted a school that's kind of good in many things. So obviously Boston College is great in academics, and kind of what I want to do with like international relations and poli sci, maybe in the direction I'm heading. And I know that BC is great for that. And then yeah, they're Division 1 for skiing, and I had really positive like chats with the coach, who was pretty positive in me possibly getting onto the team after a gap year. So BC was great. And then obviously their campus is amazing, and they're in Boston, which is the best place to go to college, So
Cool. We'll come back to you in a minute. Noah, why don't you chime in with your application process?
Well, that was a good hot take. Boston being the best place to go to college. Maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, it definitely has it has a lot of universities, right? Yeah. So I think for me, there was a lot, probably I would say a lot more uncertainty, because with Vivaan, I guess he had maybe the fortune or misfortune, however you look at it, but he had the fortune of like, he knew he wanted to go the skiing route, right? So that automatically gets rid of a lot of schools and makes your makes your choices like easier in a sense, right? So I didn't really have that sort of natural like eliminating or deciding factor, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't have a singular top choice. Some people really have some, they have a school that they're in love with. There could be, a lot of people at our school probably would say, oh, it's Harvard or Stanford. They know something that's like they just are 100% committed to that. So they go ED or REA, whatever one they have. I wasn't one of those for whatever reason. I visited a good amount of them. I grew up near Stanford and stuff. I kind of went through a phase with Stanford where I don't know, I was big. I was like, oh, I'm not going to apply. It's too close. And then I realized I was like, if I get into Stanford, it'd be stupid to, if I even have a chance, it'd be stupid to not apply. So I applied. 1% chance. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I ended up not doing an early decision anywhere, which was a tough decision to make because it can increase your chances significantly, 2 to 3x depending on the school. But so that was something that was like probably one of the harder decisions I had to make with college, because there's a lot of great schools and a lot of, the rates, the regular decision rates are just so low. It doesn't matter. I felt like I had a pretty solid application overall. Definitely not like top 1%, but I thought it was solid. But at the same time, there wasn't one school that I liked that much more over any of the other ones that I felt like I would be happy making it exclusive. Because of course, if you get in, you have to go, right? So with some of them, it's like I hadn't visited it, and I didn't want to ED somewhere that I hadn't visited, because I feel like I've had experiences in the past year. Over spring break last year, I went to the East Coast and I visited a bunch of schools, and there were some that I thought I was going to really like, and I ended up kind of hating just because of the campus and whatever the vibe that I got from the students there and stuff. And so that really made me realize that their website there's a lot more to a school than just the website, and to understanding the school's atmosphere. And vibe is such a vague word, but kind of what the vibe is, So yeah, ended up not eating anywhere, which was tough. And a lot of my friends didn't either. Some did. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest decisions when it comes to the college admissions, is the whole ED thing. I wish ED didn't exist, because I think that would just make it a lot easier for everybody. It would mean that the rates for regular decision would be higher, right? And it wouldn't, like, really it should be illegal, because you're putting these people into like a contract where not only you have to go there, but obviously you're financially bound too. For which was another reason that I couldn't really do ED, was the financial obligation, because my parents, I wasn't really guaranteed with my parents. So, but yeah, so I just applied to a lot of schools, probably more than I was going to be honest. But I think that's kind of the nature of college apps now. It's just a lot of people applying to a lot of schools because of how easy it is to apply with the internet, of course. It's just been around for 20 years, I guess, 20, 30 years. But it's still interesting when you compare it to like how it was, I don't know, in the 90s, when like you really can only apply to like 5-10 schools, and you had to mail everything in and like write everything out. And now it's just, you just copy paste the essays, you make slight changes. So it's interesting. It feels a little more impersonal. It's kind of, it's really, it feels like an assembly line almost, which I don't really like, to be honest. And it definitely encourages applying to more, because if you're not going to do ED, then it's like the chances are so low at each one that you kind of have to do a lot, cast a wider net, because it's such a coin flip, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I don't like about it. But the positives are that obviously it opens up a lot more opportunities to a lot more people that previously wouldn't be able to apply to a lot of schools, financial restrictions or whatever it is. So there's pros and cons.
Yeah, you covered a lot of ground there, bringing me back to my own experience with that, doing the handwritten applications and having to fill out certain pages with those annoying little like boxes, like one box for each letter of your name, and handwritten essays. Yeah, I can't imagine how it must be, though, to feel like you're still competitive in applying when things are so quick and efficient. I mean, it's kind of what we're all going through with like AI and the transition into AI and integrating that. It's kind of on the same lines of how do I make myself stand out? And yeah, how would you compare this kind of process to when you applied for like OHS, or maybe you applied to other high schools as well? Like was it a lot more rigorous to fill out these applications than compared to OHS?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, but before kind of the heap of the application season, I thought, I mean, everyone told me how kind of difficult it may be, but I really thought that it wouldn't be that bad, that I would kind of submit my applications and write my essays and then eventually hope to get in somewhere. But no, it ended up being a lot more stressful and kind of time consuming than I really thought. Because then you end up, when you really care about what you're doing, you end up kind of nitpicking every decision and like overthinking things and then wanting to write the perfect essay and what they would like and what you like. So I think in that respect, it's much different than applying to OHS and kind of high schools. Because then, I mean, you're younger and I feel like you don't care as much and the application process is much easier. But I mean, here you're just trying to beat the odds in every way possible. So yeah, you really have to make sure that, or kind of, you really want to make sure that every decision is the right decision, and it's kind of hard to get it spot on.
Yeah, that's what I would add. I think, and I've been saying this to people who ask me about it. Like I was talking to my dad the other day. I think the hardest thing about college is just the sheer amount of decisions that you have to make. Like it's innumerable. I mean, you can't even describe, and it can be overwhelming without the right mindset. Honestly, it probably is overwhelming even with the right mindset, because even when you're filling out a pretty simple, like you think, let's say even like descriptions on Common App, for example, about your family or about like, the parents' income, like, but what you realize is that every single thing that you put in there can impact or can have an impact. And so when I realized that, first of all, nobody really told me about that. And that kind of freaked me out, to be honest, because it was like, I started seeing like, just the ways you would describe things. Another thing is the activities list. So you have to fill out, I think it's 10, right? 10 spots for like activities, which is basically the extracurricular. People think that it's like, oh, well, he got in because he had better extracurriculars. And okay, maybe. And of course, some people have better extracurriculars than others, meaning they did more in high school. But I think an aspect that isn't really talked about is like how much the presentation matters, how you describe those activities. It actually matters a ton. You could have two people who did the exact same thing, and one of them has like a college counselor tell them exactly how to write it, and here's what we're going to say, and we're going to stretch that truth, and we're going to exaggerate this. And it looks like they did 2 or 3x more than the first guy did, even though they did the same thing. Like, I guarantee you that happens. I mean, that happens all of the time. And that's one of the things when I look back, I go, I feel like I could have represented certain things that I did better. I maybe undersold myself a little bit. But it's just difficult to make 0 of those mistakes because there's so many decisions. Everything that you write down, even if you think it's just describing a reality, it's like, it is a choice, and there are people who are going to be, or going to have professionals look over literally every single thing, which is like, I mean, when you submit an application, it's like 20, 30 pages to each one of these schools, And of course, a lot of that is the same stuff, but even when you consider it, it's still like 15 pages worth of stuff that you fill out. Even the smallest things can matter, So that's where you look at people who have college counselors, and especially like who've had them throughout high school. I think they really do have a big advantage. I didn't really realize that so much as I do now. I think schools are wary of that. I don't know much. Who knows how the closed room decisions are made, in the admissions process. But I think they can understand when someone's had a college counselor for 4 years versus someone who hasn't, can hopefully calibrate for that. I don't know, but yeah, that's honestly been my biggest takeaway. And I know this is a little off your original question of how it was compared to applying to high schools. To be honest, I have a very bad memory, so I don't really remember what it was like applying for high school, but I can just imagine that it's like X or 1000X, just more chaos, just more decisions, more, of course, the implications are also kind of a lot more profound too. And it just involves, it kind of like, it really seeps into your life if you're applying to, a somewhat significant amount of schools, which a lot of people kind of have to these days, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks, I'm sure, for a lot of people going through that process right now. I mean, you're speaking through the lens of like, well, you both are on 2 different sides of it, right? Like Vivaan, you kind of already know where you're going. Noah, you're kind of still waiting to find out or to hear from more schools. But those are, probably both like intense emotions, like on both sides of things. And maybe Vivaan, you feel a little bit of like peace of mind, but maybe you still have some, maybe some anxiety or not knowing maybe what to expect exactly, maybe. In Noah, you might have an idea of where you might end up, but it's hard to, like you were saying, it's hard to know what they're looking for. And my advice to you both, right, just in the moment right now, just remember that that's like completely normal to feel like I'm really out of control of, in a way, like I'm in control, but I'm also out of control of like who's making these decisions. And also, even if you know where you're going to school, like what's that going to look like in a couple years, I get that totally. It's like a vulnerable feeling, but just trust yourselves. And the application is just it's a flash in the pan, it's I mean, yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but I'm a true believer too. And like, if you're putting your best effort into life and you're a good person and you're showing your authentic self, even if you don't end up at the school that you think you want to go to the most, maybe that I can guarantee you'll end up in the place where you need to be, And so what if like someone else gets in there instead of you, if they had a more polished resume or more polished application? But if you're working towards your dreams and your path and you're showing, love, compassion for others and have a good work ethic, I mean, that's what's most important. But yeah, cool. What else have we not really talked about much? I mean, we haven't really touched on like how do you this is kind of a abstract question, but I want to ask it. How do you think that college could change your life, like, or could change who you are? How do you see that happening?
Well, I can go first, I guess. I think it definitely has a huge place in your life, depending on the school you go to, for sure. But I also feel like, unlike a lot of people think, I feel like you can do a lot from not being kind of at like an IV or at one of these 3 or 5% schools. I don't know. I feel like a lot, like we're stressing about the application season now. We're like, I really want to get in Columbia because I can do this and this and then this afterwards, But I don't know. It's a lot up to you as well. And I think that's something that a lot of people kind of overlook, is that you really have to put in the effort no matter where you're going. And then I guess, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, and like I think if you go to one of these schools, they kind of get you the interview for sure. But then after that, you still need to impress, and you still need to do well, right? So I think it's a mix. It obviously helps a lot in the beginning of your career, but then I mean, if you're looking for higher education, then your grad school matters a lot as well. And it's not only up to kind of where you go to undergraduate school, but a lot of other factors too that can kind of build up your resume and build up who you are as a person to kind of do the career you'd like to do and like be successful.
Yeah, well, I think it all depends on how you define success, because yeah, IVs, or like you said, IV, I guess, yeah, they're statistically, maybe they add a little bit of an increase in wages, within the first 5 years of graduating, probably, stuff like that. Is probably it definitely, I think I agree with you, Miss Hendricks, that it matters. You'll end up where you should be, kind of, and I think it matters. You get in what you put out, like you said at the start of this. That was before we started recording, I think, but yeah, you get in what you put out of it. So I'm a firm believer that with the right mentality, you can really be happy pretty much anywhere, maybe with a couple exceptions, but certainly anywhere within a college landscape, So in terms of what I want to get out of it, I certainly professionally, that's something I maybe have certain ideas. I want to experience a lot of different things, try things out, meet people, see what happens. I don't think it's a good thing to lock myself into anything now. There's some people at my school, like they go, since fifth grade, I've wanted to be an investment banker. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. And if it is, God bless, but that's at least not the case for me. So, I want to meet a lot of people, get experiences, especially coming from an online high school. I feel like there's certain aspects that I missed out on, during high school. And I'm not just saying just socially, but just a variety of things that I think, and that was a separate concept that we talked about in the last episode. Not that I really remember what I said, but yeah, I think it's called your alma mater for a reason, right? So I kind of want to come out of it, I think, and just have a lot of like growth in personal, professional, like a soul holistic type of way. So that's my goal, at least.
Yeah, well said, both of you. I mean, it sounds like you both have a very healthy mindset around, you know, managing the stress of it, of this kind of this intense process and that we all have to go through. So I commend you for making it this far, and it's just going to be really exciting. You know, life is dynamic and has its ups and downs no matter what age, you know, of life, but these are the moments where you build resilience. I have to look up after this and maybe add it to the episode notes, but there was someone that was a professor of psychology that spoke like in a video that I saw around kind of redefining resilience as like the time it takes for you to be in a mindset or like a state of mind of frustration while you learn. Like learning is frustration in a sense, and resilience is like more about, you know, instead of trying to rush through it and not really necessarily learn anything at the end and just have a heightened state of stress, it's like in that moment of frustration, like how are you managing that, and then, you know, kind of riding it out until you learn something. You know, it's almost parallel to anytime you go through a hard time in life. It's like you can easily get sucked in, wrapped in your own emotions or your own fears or your own whatever it is. But I mean, these are things that I tell myself, you know, just like, wow, this is a challenging moment. Like, what's my first step to like take a step forward, you know? That's a good thing to, and this is the reason I bring that up, is because you are in another, like a place that could be considered a challenging time. So good job with the mindsets there. Any other pieces of wisdom that you might want to share in case there are other high school students or other people in similar positions listening to this?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of specific college stuff I'm sure me and Vivaan can talk about. It's probably not very interesting. And I'm sure there's a lot of money being made off of college apps right now, which probably is a reason that it's so complicated, to be honest, because money makes the world go round. But just on a more general note, I mean, kind of what I've been thinking about, and I used to think that I would hear people say this and think, oh, they're coping because they didn't get into a good school. But I really think that when you zoom out, and maybe this is a little cynical, but you know, none of this matters like at all, in my view, at least. I mean, we're so unimportant. You know, Earth has been around for what, 4.5 billion years, or is it 6? I don't know. I don't even know. And you know, we were born, we're gonna die, and nobody's even gonna have any remembrance of us within 200 or 300 years, unless we do something really, really remarkable. Probably, usually, the bad remarkable is what ends up being more remembered. But you know, because of that, it's like some people look at that and become depressed or become, you know, there's no point to any of this, so why should I even do anything? And I look at it as the opposite, which is I think it really is freeing, you know, because since none of this really matters at all, and it's like you might as well just really do what makes you happy. And hopefully what makes you happy is also making others happy. I think that's a big part of it. You know, it's not an entirely selfish mindset. But I think it really frees you from whatever societal bounds there are, because at the end of the day, everything's kind of a societal construct. You know, all of these concepts like college and everything that are created and how we define success. That doesn't mean, and that's not, yeah, like obviously I tried really hard and I will obviously be disappointed if I don't get into what I consider good schools. But I think that's kind of how I see things at the end of the day. None of it really matters at all because all of this was created by us. You can't be a prisoner of your own mind, right? So that's just what I would say. A little cynical, maybe.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Vivaan, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Noah. I think what he was saying, yeah, a lot of people can think of it as kind of depressing, but I don't know. I think it's freeing as well. And I don't know. I take my dad as a great role model because he's obviously done. I mean, Noah's met him a lot, but like he's obviously done a lot with his professional career. But then, like, I mean, all his happiness or a lot of his happiness stems from what he does. He loves his work, and then I don't know. He's like the chillest person I've ever met. So I don't know. And like he's been very quote unquote successful, but he also came from Trinidad and then he went to McGill, even though he got into MIT afterwards. But I mean, like all of this, he said he told me when I got deferred from Dartmouth and got into BC, which is fantastic. But he was like, yeah, I didn't go to MIT, and I'm so glad that I did. So I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of decisions that now you may think are incredibly important. And I remember when I was applying to high school and when I was doing U12 and U14 ski competitions, I thought they were the end of the world. I was like, if I don't do well, then it's going to ruin my life. But really, I mean, you've forgotten about it now, and 10 years from now, you're going to forget about it too. So, I mean, like, try your best and do whatever makes you the happiest. But I mean, other than that, it's kind of, you're just living life and trying to be your happiest and trying to make everyone else happy.
Just to add on real quick to the happy thing, I'm not even going to try to tackle what is the what makes people happy, but I will say that it's a very common thing to hear about, that people who end up going to the top schools, Ivy Leagues or whatever, are really remarkably unhappy. So I think there's something to learn there, because I think a lot of people equate happiness with the ranking on US News and World Report of their school that they end up getting into, and or their test scores and their grades and the stuff that Vivaan was mentioning, minutia of everyday life. Again, stuff that we've all that has been created by us, right? So I don't know what instead to equate it to, but I know not to equate it, at least not entirely, to that, which are kind of things they're not, they don't really exist. So yeah, great. I think great. It gives people temporary happiness probably to get into places. I would be thrilled if I get into Harvard. And right, that's incredible. On a deep level, again, taking the long-term view, like Vivaan was saying, it's all about your mentality. You could be the happiest person in the world at Harvard. You could be the happiest person in the world at just your local community college, and by the inverse, you could be miserable at Harvard, as so many of their students are. Not just them, but all of these top schools. So yeah, I think it really ultimately is all about how you approach it.
All right. Well, thank you both for meeting again, and this has been really awesome. I mean, it's been 2 years. I just checked. We haven't met together, the three of us, since like April 14th, 2023. So this has been a very thoughtful and just a fantastic conversation. Hopefully you both will have a nice transition into your next, major life stage. You're already on a good track. You're on your way there. And Noah, you're gonna have to let me know. Well, let us both know where you end up deciding to go.
I will let you know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.